Great, we are now live. Okay. Hello everyone, welcome to round 4 of the New Zealand Schools Debating Championships. The motion is, this house regrets TikTok mental health awareness content, e.g. signs you have ADHD, my experience with depression. On the affirmative we have Auckland Blue, and on the negating we have Canterbury, and without further ado, I welcome up first affirmative.
At the top of my speech, I just want to make something clear, because we're okay with conceding some level of awareness in the trade-off for having good awareness, right? Because what we think is the problem in the status quo and what we'll frame to you is that the awareness that you currently have is ineffective. What we're going to propose to you then is that we get better awareness that leads to better change that is principally good for everyone. I'm going to do 3 things in my speech. Firstly, on setup. Secondly, on why this leads to massive levels of why TikTok, like mental health awareness, leads to massive amount of principal harm. And thirdly, then on why this leads to mental health problems being worse in society when you have them in place. Firstly, on setup, right? Because let's just do some characterization on what these mental health problems or YouTube shorts actually look like. 3 things. Firstly, we think they're most likely to be driven by views and how viral it is, right? It doesn't matter even if some creators think of it as like very passionately and genuinely, because it's likely going to be washed away in scale by just how many other creators are likely to be profiting off of it. But also note, secondly, that oftentimes it includes inadequate levels of information and research, right? Not only just because of all the previous incentives I told you, but note that when you have 60 seconds to present a very advanced and difficult topic, you're never able to reach the full scope of it just on a scale of time. But also thirdly, note that it's oftentimes dramatized or romanticized in the shifts of trends, right? This looks like thinking people with depression are very attractive or cool, even though that's oftentimes that's just disrespectful, right? At the end of this implication then is that these mental health awareness TikToks are oftentimes inadequately researched and poorly represented. We also think that they're large in scale in the fact that lots of people engage with this media and lots of people interact with it. What do we see in the counterfactual then? A few things to note. Firstly, we think that it's likely to be redirected to forms of longer content, for example YouTube, or for example written media like websites. Why do we think this is the most likely counterfactual? 3 reasons for this. Firstly, we think that this is because mental health will probably still naturally become more popular and progressive as it naturally develops and people as it naturally develops and is researched. But also secondly, note that they're probably still likely for these individuals to share, these genuine creators to share their interests, and there probably is going to be a platform where they want to do that. But also thirdly, note that there are likely to be the trends of being open about mental health likely existed on YouTube and / reporting before the shifts to TikTok or before the shift to media like YouTube Shorts. Argument 1 then on why this just leads to a massive amount of principal harm when you let TikTok creators create massive shorts on your experience on mental health awareness, right? 3 things on this. Firstly, let's just analyze why does this undermine the problems that individuals with mental health problems face, right? Because note the context that I've given you on the scale of this, right? Even if you have some genuine creators there, it's washed away by the fact that there's a lot of people who are in it for the trend and in it for the views, right? What you're likely to see then is 3 things. Firstly, it's likely to be represented very poorly in the sense that it's under-researched and generalized. I already told you this in my characterization. But note that the extent of an example of this, but note that the extent of OCD being used to represent wanting to organize, but never the real mental health disorder that people have to go through and live with every day, undermines their problems that they're actually struggling with, and makes it more difficult for them in society. Because when you tell someone you have OCD, they just think you have a really bad issue with wanting to organize something, but not that it actively hinders your life and how you act. But also secondly, note that it shows the most basic harms of mental health, right? But note that this mental health operates on a spectrum in the sense that it differs based on the individuals that experience it. You as an individual might be able to make a video talking about the most basic levels of it, but it's never going to reach the scale of how different people feel, or how people with clinical depression literally can't get out of the bed every day, rather than just saying that you as an individual maybe, not undermining them, but you as an individual might only have a spectrum in terms of the fact that you feel sad after having a test or something. Thirdly, note that it's also just really easy to diagnose yourself with this, right? I'll go over this later, but also important to note that when you're suffering through the most extreme cases of mental health and you're genuinely struggling, and you see that the only representation you have is the most basic levels of one, you're likely to feel like you're dramatizing yourself, or you feel like the community that you should be able to align yourself with don't actually align with you, and you feel like you don't belong with that community, and that is where the harms are the most worse. Secondly then, note why this trend just monetizes mental health, right? 3 things on this. Firstly, at its very core, essentially you're just profiting off of other people's struggles of the most minimal effort, right? But also secondly, note that it strays further from the real harms, right? Essentially what it turns to is a game of Chinese whispers, where you try to benefit the algorithm and try to game the system by having going for trendy topics, so you're less likely to do research and base all your other knowledge on these TikToks that already exist. But also thirdly, note that the algorithm just pulls you in, right? You try to game the algorithm, so it's likely to show you similar content, so even when you engage with one TikTok, you're only likely to be shown with this, so it pulls you into a cycle. Lastly then, let's just talk about why this is solved in the comparative and the counterfactual, right? Two things on this. Firstly, note that it's less of a trend when it's likely to be more sensitive and personal, so it's likely to be genuine when all the genuine creators still want to do this and it's less of a trend. But also note that secondly, it just requires more effort to compose, right? When you no longer are constrained to 60 seconds and are actually able to make a full-length video detailing how you feel, detailing your experiences with treatment, that's when you're able to get the most amount of benefits with this media. What are the impacts then? Two things. Firstly, note that this is independent of the outcome, right? Because no matter what happens, we're still this principle still stands, and the fact that we're still supporting not monetizing and undermining mental health. But also secondly, it applies universally no matter what happens, so this principle stands no matter what. Argument 2 then on why this leads to mental health problems being much worse in society and engagements with it, right? Two things on this. Firstly, let's just talk about why you're more likely to self-diagnose yourself, right? Because going through the process of diagnosing yourself means going through oftentimes understaffed facilities and extremely long processes, because mental health is a really serious issue that you have to engage with. Three things on this. Firstly, not already engaged on this, but you're likely to just see media have an echo chamber from the algorithm where you engage with one TikTok showing you about signs you have ADHD, and then all of a sudden the rest of the TikTok you see, rest of the TikTok you view is likely to be also on this, in the sense that you keep scrolling and you see another one, so you more so convince yourself that you have it, even if you're not able to represent yourself. But also secondly, note that it's just really easy to identify what the basic harms represented, right? Everyone feels sad to some extent, but maybe not sad to the extent that they might have depression, so it's easy to convince yourself you have it. But also thirdly, note that even if you don't get checked out, in the sense that you don't want to go through this long process because it's difficult, you still have a placebo effect, in the sense that you think you have depression and that manifests on how you perceive yourself, right? If you think you have depression, then you're likely to feel sadder just because of the fact that you feel like you should be feeling the symptoms that you saw on TikTok. I'll take a point if you have one.
Do you think it's highly unlikely that people will actually engage with reading articles or long form videos?
Okay, I've already told you that in my characterization, right? That it's still likely to happen because mental health is an inherently more progressive thing, right? And as people realize that there's probably some difficulties that they're struggling with, we probably still think that there's going to be awareness of it without TikTok, because we think that this existed before TikTok even was a thing, right? We think even before TikTok awareness of mental health happens, you're still seeing things on YouTube and it still exists. Argument 2 then on Mech 2 then on how this manifests negatively in social interactions. Because note that the problem, right, is that when you minimize the harms and treat it as less, then the problem is then seen as less sensitive and minimized, right? What happens then is three things. Firstly, you pressure people to speak up when they're not ready, in the sense that you feel like their problems aren't big enough, so you feel like they can just talk about it because everyone else is doing about it. But also secondly, that when people do open up, you're less sensitive about it, right? Because you're less likely to treat them and care when you see that they're probably when you think that they're represented by the most minimal harms that you see on TikTok. Also thirdly, you might also, when you're interacting with people, push a singular solution to them, right? Because when if individual suffering through depression on TikTok tells you that therapy was a solution, you might push it onto them without representing that everyone deals with it differently. Everyone deals with some people go through antidepressants, and that there's different amounts of solutions, even though you're only engaged with a singular solution you've seen on TikTok. What are the impacts of this? Three things. Firstly, self-diagnoses are really harmful because the impacts are the sense that you take a lot of resources, or you just have a placebo effect in which it manifests into your day-to-day life, in which you feel worse. But also secondly, note that people with mental health troubles feel either pressure to speak up, or that the fact that they problems aren't big enough to the scale that people are disrespecting them. But also thirdly, lastly, it encourages people with mental health issues to move at a pace that's unsuitable for them, which means that overall, when you're talking about mental health, when you're actually struggling within society with all the balances that you're talking about, that's when you have worse mental health. That's when you treat people worse. Thank you.
Great, I thank Professor Affirmative for that speech. I welcome up Professor Negating.
It was not enough for Affirmative here today to simply say that all representation on TikTok was all just meaningless, profiteering and trend following, while ignoring the legions of real people with real issues who have used this platform to very meaningfully express their feelings and experiences with these problems. Canterbury refuses to regret a movement and trend that has primarily served to normalize and create dialogue around an issue that our society has been locked-lipped on for far too long. What is Canterbury going to prove to you in this debate? Number one, that by opening up a dialogue, we've served many thousands of neurodiverse people through this trend, and two, that we've actually created better attitudes among neurotypical people towards people going through their struggles for reasons I will get onto later. Two things we're going to chat about today. Number one, the benefits to people going through these issues when they engage with this content, and number two, benefits to society when neurotypical people engage with this content. But before I get onto that, I'd like to do a little bit of characterization on what this content realistically looks like, because I think the Affirmative team has quite frankly butchered what this really is like in the real world.
Sure.
Alright, we'll do some characterization. One, I think most of the people on this trend, on this kind of TikTok thing, are probably people opening up about their own struggles. A lot of people go through these issues, a lot of content creators go through these issues. Most people have struggled with things like depression, anxiety in their life, and there are a lot of people with things like ADHD, etc. And a lot of these people also need an outlet and find their content creation a good source for that. We see that actually the vast majority of people engaging with the system are probably going to be good faith actors opening up about themselves. Two, that while bad actors might exist, we think that actually be overwhelmingly rare. And note that what I'm going to say here in the characterization engages with most of what they have to say about what they think these trend followers would look like. Alright. The world isn't filled with these Machiavellian psychopaths looking to make light of serious issues for like $5 on AdSense on TikTok. I think this is a massive stretch for how these things actually work. Furthermore, I think we've actually got a lot of cancel culture mechanisms in place in the current society, wherein that if people are making light of these issues and doing these harmful things, they're going to be really heavily punished, like losing their jobs, etc., which is a really strong disincentive and sets them up at basically martyrs them to stop other people from doing it in the future. And fourth, because TikTok has this feature called duets, people can uniquely put up their own reactions to the videos and respond to them. And these duets tend to go just as viral, if not more viral, than the original videos themselves. What this looks like is when these bad faith videos come into existence of that side of a house, the more viral version of that video is a duet from a medical health professional talking about how this is inaccurate and what the actual signs of ADHD look like. This is really, really good. Alright then, what do these TikToks actually look like on our side of a house? When people are opening up about their issues, these include a lot of things like coping mechanisms, how these people deal with their issues. It looks like things like people opening up about their struggles and their feelings. It looks like people talking about how they've got diagnosed and encouraging other people, because diagnosis is a tool to better mental health, to go seek out diagnosis themselves in the future, and as well as, yes, some ungrounded your ADHD because you like the colour purple videos, but again, these are largely drowned out both in numbers because there are more people who have these issues than there are people who are evil, and also the fact that there's strong demand to engage with the legit videos because people crave genuine human connection, they like authenticity, there's a lot of good engagement. Okay, I'll take your POI now.
Even if you have genuine creators opening up about their struggles, how credible is it that they're able to provide genuine solutions to people struggling with mental health issues?
We don't need to solve depression through having people talk about their issues. That's not obviously what we're standing for. What we stand for is that people feel reflected in the media they consume, they feel positive representation. I've actually got so many points on why this is good that'll be coming up. But before I do that, let's do a little bit of rebuttal of some of the more crazy claims that have come out today. Number one, that they think that on their side of a house, they get long-form content that we do not. I think it's fair to say that long-form content does exist in the status quo where we have these TikTok videos. These are not mutually exclusive concepts. In fact, we think that uniquely, TikTok directs people towards long-form content. One, because a lot of people are situated only on TikTok. So, if you suddenly make a YouTube video without shouting it out on your TikTok, not many people are redirected in that direction. And two, because TikTok has just a way bigger viewer base, and so these videos tend to go more viral. They've also talked about how it creates trivialization when people self-diagnose themselves or whatever. We've talked about this duets mechanism, which is really important, right? People who are going through these actual mental health issues will then step up and say, this is not reflective of my experience. Actually, shame on you for making these kinds of videos, which is really good. That starts up a conversation. And also, again, real stuff exists too. That's what I'm going to be talking about here today. All right, point number one, benefits to the individual. Our attitudes towards mental health today are atrocious. Neurodiverse people misdiagnoses and have been slapped with labels like antisocial or lazy. This means that they aren't given the support structures they need as people with different needs than the average, that and are just labeled as these things as personality flaws that can just be self-helped their own way out of. What this means is that when they inevitably don't succeed in this, they internalize these social attitudes and suffer entirely new mental health harms. Mental health TikTok has helped thousands and thousands of people out of this pit for 3 reasons. Number one, it makes people feel less alone. What this looks like is if you're scrolling through and you've got all the symptoms of ADHD and you suddenly see like a person who actually has ADHD talking about their experience with ADHD before they got diagnosed, and they're like, wow, this is actually me. This like really reflects my experience with this disease really, really well. What that means is that these people feel like they're not alone. They realize that there actually is like this whole world of other people who feel like them, and there are just like other alternatives that they can take. What this also looks like is them receiving coping mechanisms from these people. Like if people with ADHD or people with depression have like shared their own life philosophies on these issues, their own means of dealing with them, I think pretty uniquely people can take those coping mechanisms, decide which ones are helpful, which ones are not, and then I think a lot of them will serve these people in their own lives. Number two, we actually get content creators an outlet. This is going to be us introducing an entirely new stakeholder here, content creators. Because if we've got this like social trend where people can open up about their issues to their platform, this is really cathartic for content creators. In the status quo, they have to like pretend to live within this system where they're this perpetually happy character that's just reacting to TikToks or whatever, and they don't have real issues, they don't have like actual they can't talk about their in-depth struggles. When they actually do this, when they do open up, this is deeply cathartic. And three, this encourages people to seek a proper diagnosis, because when they see these content creators opening up about how they got their diagnosis and how through that diagnosis they were able to leverage people around them to say, this is an actual issue I have, what this means, crucially, is that when people go out and seek these tests that don't happen on their side of the house, and then they find out they actually do have these issues, really crucially, what that means is that they can find and leverage the support structures and tools in order to work around these issues and make their life better. All right, now a little bit about benefits to society, because neurotypicals that engage with this content treat neurodiverse people better on our side of the house. One, this is because people that are well liked on TikTok and have like viral following bases, like when they open up, sway their fans. This is because people respect them and like their name and face. And so when that name and face is put on the issue, like notably positive associations with that person then transfer over to like how people view the issue. TikTok is also unique in the fact that these videos get large-scale engagement and support, which means that when people are talking about how I've kind of secretly, I have a very like happy outside presentation, but I've been dealing with depression on the inside, this builds empathy, this builds people being able to like understand that this isn't just like people look sad and that's what depression is, that it's actually a real meaningful, deep issue that neurotypical people can be better able to engage with. For this reason and more that our later speakers will get into, we are just incredibly happy that this movement has happened. Thank you.
Great, I thank both Negating for that speech. I will come up to the Affirmative.
Integrate that in a bit. Secondly, is really accepting people who deal with like but aren't able to access the credentials. Sorry. Oh, yes, that's right.
Okay. Oh wait, can I just like move that back a bit? When I like look at myself on the camera, it's so distracting. Just like move it here. Thank you.
Wait, sorry.
Okay. The challenge we gave you from Lucas to no response to that first negating speaker was why has this trend existed in the first place? Because we told you that there was a demand for it. Because people wouldn't post content about it, it wouldn't get popular, it wouldn't become a trend on TikTok if people weren't interested in it. Because algorithms promote what people are interested in. If this didn't, the only reason this exists is because there's a pre-existing interest in defend. What Nick needs to defend is why they need this excessive exposure and to the point where everyone is just getting complete misinformation. On our side, we think that there is enough exposure already, and that is the world in which we want to defend. Also, Lauren, I've stolen one of your lip balms. Okay, now then, 3 things I'm going to be talking about. Firstly, I'm going to be talking about short form content on their side. Secondly, I'm going to be talking about counterfactual. Thirdly, I'm going to be bringing you a split on how you normalize pressuring people into speaking out in bad ways. Now then, firstly then, let's talk about mental health awareness. And here I want to go over the incentives on these TikTok creators. And it's that they are viewer hungry. And this is because, and the reasons for this is because, the reason is because they correlated with their success. The amount of views you have, the amount of followers you have, it is seen as how successful you are. But also because you became an influencer in the first place. You go on TikTok in the first place to get those likes, to get that fame. But also because there's just like a grind for views. It's addictive. You want those numbers to go up higher. It triggers the hedonic treadmill. So what this means is that they were incredibly viewer hungry. And all of this is to suggest that they are willing to lie. I think they said that there are a couple accountability mechanisms here. Let's go over those. The first one they said is cancel culture. And to this I would say, who's canceling them? The people there misinforming? I don't think that's very good. I don't think there's much accountability there. But also I would say their exact mechanisms as to how the people are incredibly sympathetic and empathetic towards them means that they don't want to call them out. Because when someone tells your story of depression, you probably don't want to go up to them and say, you're lying, this is terrible. Obviously people don't want to do that. But also they try to say doctors can do it. But obviously there are just way more normal people than some doctor that just so happens to be a TikToker. Doctors can't even come close to doing 10% of these TikToks. So obviously that wasn't a good accountability mechanism. They couldn't go over everything. Now then, what were the outcomes of this? Now then, note here, there's already a demand for this content by proxy of it being a TikTok trend, and that means it's something that creators get views on. So they exploit it for more engagement. How do they do this? Firstly, they make it incredibly general. They just say one sign of ADHD is just being easily distracted, even though that's obviously not the extent of ADHD. But also, it's also know that this isn't necessarily completely wrong. Our misinformation was the misinformation we're talking about wasn't complete lies, but instead the ways they twisted it to just make it more general. So that means they don't necessarily get called out for it, because it's not necessarily wrong, and there's all those incentives for you to not call them out because of the fact that you're an empathetic person, right? You don't want to call out this person who's relaying their terrible story. But secondly, it's that they're more likely to make it a positive thing. The point where having ADHD is actually a benefit and actually doesn't bring you any harms. Now, what are all the really bad outcomes of this? Because as long as it stands, they just lose the debate. The first thing to say is that there's just a massive opportunity cost. Let's say the first thing to say is that there's a massive opportunity cost. It is a huge waste of resources. Note that there also I'd like to know Lucas already gave you a lot of impacts. I'm just going to be giving you some more to show you why this completely wins the debate. Now then, there's a huge opportunity cost. That is to say that all the misinformation results in wasted time going towards this mental health industry. Notice that this mental health industry doesn't have a lot of resources because there aren't a lot of professionals in there. Why is this? Firstly, because it's hard. You need a good education to get in there. And secondly, it's that it really sucks. It sucks having to constantly listen to traumatic experiences every day. It's not something many people can handle. So there are very limited resources in this industry. And on this side, you're using up all of those limited resources because you just have a bunch of people that sort of TikTok and they go in there and they try to get diagnosed and turns out, I don't actually have ADHD, and all it is, and it just gets worse. It just blocks off more people from being able to access those resources and uses up those limited resources and stops you from helping the people that actually need help. But also, there's a huge principle harm here, and it's that we shouldn't exploit people. Yes, exploiting workers, paying them small amounts could technically grow our economy, it could technically make better products, it could technically make us develop faster. Even if there are benefits to this, I would just say exploiting people is always going to be worse, because we as society recognize that exploitation is absolutely abhorrent. Now then, moving on to my point on our counterfactual. They tried to do a push on the counterfactual here by saying long form still exists. But obviously there's an opportunity cost here, because why would you commit so much time to a long form video when there's a nice TikTok where that's much shorter, much more condensed, with happy music? Obviously you're going to be consuming that instead of the long form content, so you're going to be getting that misinformation from there. But also know this long form content is just more likely to be higher quality. Firstly, because you have to go through the design process. You have to edit these videos. Because you have to appeal to the algorithm, right? There's just a much higher standard for YouTube videos. Just think basically, right? YouTube videos tend to be much more highly edited. That's how you get into the algorithm. TikToks just tend to be very low quality, something you can just make in a minute. Meanwhile, these long form videos generally take days, hours to make. And this results in two things. Firstly, you're more likely to feel guilt just because it's longer. But secondly, at the point where you work so hard on it, you probably just want a more well-researched video. So overall, we're more likely to tap into people's skill, try and get them to research better. But also, the second thing here is that there's more accountability built in, and that's because the viewers commit more time to this. They spend more time on this, so they're going to be more critical. It's not just some random TikTok, it's something they put a much larger investment into. So you're more likely to actually have backlash on these creators, in our counterfactual. But thirdly, it's that even if short form is good, I would just say that this is better because you have a higher capacity to make better videos because it's not a super short video, right? So this results in two main impacts. First is that you don't get any of the misinformation or significantly less, or secondly, you're more likely to tell people get diagnosed because you research into it more, you know the importance of getting diagnosis and actually trusting those things, right? But let's say even if this long form content is bad, I would just say that there's less misinformation overall because this long form content is less accessible, right? It's much harder to just go ahead and make a YouTube video, and overall less people watch long form content. So that means at the very least, even if this long form content was bad, that just means we were having less misinformation in the world. That's something we were willing to stand by. Before moving on to my point, I'll take a point.
Do content creators often use TikToks to direct people to longer form videos like on YouTube?
Okay, I already told you about the opportunity cost analysis. That doesn't engage with what I told you. Now then, moving on to my point on how you normalize pressuring people into speaking out. And at the top of this point, what I want to say is that it's really easy to become a TikTok. Anyone can do it. Anyone can become a TikToker. So what this has then created is a norm in which you just pressure everyone to go out and speak about this experience. And that's because you think it's a beneficial thing. You think that person is spreading awareness. And this results so that means you're more likely to pressure people into making these TikToks. What's this result in? Firstly, I would just say you have pressure people into reliving traumatic experiences, like the low point of their depression. This is just an awful thing. That's huge harm to them. But secondly, it is absolutely principally abhorrent. People have a right to their feelings. People have a right to keep it to themselves and to say it whenever they want to. I would say that you are impeding on their right to only come out when they want to come out. Know that this isn't a problem on our side, because not everyone is being able to seen as produce a YouTube video. It's just a much more inaccessible thing. So you don't just see it as something as everyone should do. So you're less likely to pressure. So in our world was one in which you had less of this pressure, less of that abhorrent pressure. They were the side that made mental health awareness worse, and we didn't like that.
Great, I think we can affirmative for that speech, and then we'll come up to the negating.
I think the point at which Canterbury wins the debate today is the point where we brought you the content on why this all this mental health TikTok culture actually looks like people coming out and talking about their own experiences, which are valid, which are not what they're kind of characterizing to be is they don't know enough about it. If you're going through it, your experience is valid. We don't think that there's two things that I'm going to talk to you about in my speech today. Firstly, a clash on what type of content we're actually seeing on TikTok, and then secondly, on a clash of which side gets better outcomes in terms of mental health and in certain education, research and stuff. Okay, so firstly on what type of content that we're seeing on TikTok. So here we heard F make a claim that content control viewer hungry content creators fake it or something like try and like act like they're neurodiverse and something like that. Like a few responses to this. Firstly, we see that people don't largely buy into self-diagnosed content creators. Why is this? Because like generally like we see that like people are aware that they're like there's people doing this. So when they see this happen and they have this knowledge, they won't buy into these like these like people who are making these like self-diagnosing themselves. Secondly, we told you like cancel culture. They came back and said like that who's going to be doing this? Or like cancel culture is like basically no thank you. Cancel culture basically like the people people don't stand for like mental health and like such important issues just being like brushed over and stuff like that. So everyone will be cancelling them. There's also like TikTok community guidelines, which is like always takes down like a video as soon as it becomes controversial because they don't want to be held accountable. And then so we do actually see this cancel culture mechanism will go through and like those people will be cancelled. And if this is cancelled, what does this mean? It means like those people realise that those people were faking it, they realise that that's like not true and that false information doesn't spread. Thirdly, fourthly, we tell like it's like quite a reach because like the vast majority, as we stated, won't want to like risk like the backlash for like faking of being neurodiverse. And then fifthly, we talked about like doctors, how like doctors and medical professionals like can do it this. Their pushback to this was that like they're only gonna like do it like 10% because there's not as many on there, right? Well, we tell you they're likely gonna be like duetting the 10% most viral TikToks, which are the ones that are reaching the most people, right? So we actually see that they're like duetting and talking about the most ones that are reaching the most viewers. So that actually we are seeing those benefits. They are actually talking about the mental health outcomes positively and actually getting the good information that they really rely on our side of the house. Also, another claim that we heard from them is that like people will like self-diagnose because like they feel people self-diagnose because they like manifest all this like that they've got OCD and stuff like that, and then they'll like feel bad about themselves. So like a few responses, like firstly we think that it's like people are like unlikely to self-diagnose themselves just from like one video, and like even if they are, we see that like if they see these symptoms, they're not just going to be like manifesting like going down this hole. We generally see that like guides them, which we've kind of clearly meeked out at first, to like go to the doctor, which means that they'll get that diagnosis. They'll find out if they actually are struggling with that mental health issue, and then if they were, they get those positive outcomes. If they weren't, they learn about it and they're way more educated. So we think that that claim doesn't stand. Okay, what did we bring you on this? We brought you in like heaps of information. Yeah.
Okay, so even if you have backlash, this exploitation still happen. How do you engage with the principal analysis we gave you as to why exploiting people, regardless of the outcomes, is always a bad thing?
Well, exploiting people regardless of the outcomes is like always a bad thing. Yes, we acknowledge that, but we see that that's like quite like a lower impact compared to like those like viral videos, and we see generally like exploiting those people that aren't that are faking it for like attention are like generally is we think that is like a positive thing because we don't think we want to be spreading this misinformation, which was kind of like the main claim that F kind of like worked on today. So as I was saying, like what we brought you on this is like we brought you information on like how we actually get like better mental health outcomes because like when it becomes less stigmatized. So we told you like when your like fave comes out with their like mental health struggles and like fans either whether they're neurodiverse or neurotypical, they feel like it's become more normalized because that's like their idol, right? Their idol now has this, so it's like a more normal thing. They become less stigmatized with it. So why is this benefit like exclusive to us? Like TikTok culture is like a medium where like creators are like upload videos really fast, like they get fast views and stuff like this. This is only something that really is like gets major popularity on social media. Like long reports cannot do this, which I'll go into anyway later. And then so we see that we get this exclusive benefit, and like they can't really claim this at all because if they're not going to have this TikTok culture, then it's just going to be stigmatized. So no one will want to post those videos like coming out themselves, and therefore they're unlikely to share. We don't actually get that valid information. We actually get more of the misinformation because those people are likely to still have the incentive to like post that because they're just generally like bad actors. Okay. No, thank you. In terms of this, we also heard from like F claiming that. I'll move on to my second point of clash now around why we get like who gets better outcomes in terms of like mental health. So they said that they get better outcomes in terms of like education because like there's going to be these long reports which are like preferable to these short videos. A few responses to this. So firstly, we don't see like neurodiverse people like that are like not that largely like educated in the system and haven't gone through it, but just like neurodiverse, like coming out and creating this content, because they don't have like the time to like write this report, and they don't have like as much information to write about, write this like long report or do this like 1 hour video, YouTube video on. So we see that we actually don't get their thing, and we think that that's really important because those like videos show like the variance of neurodiverse people, and we think it's really important that people actually see that, because that like leads to people actually like seeing like what they might relate to. Secondly, we tell you that like people are like way more likely to just engage in short videos. Why? Because it's just easier to access, and as humans we're like gonna go to like a 30-second video as opposed to like a 30-minute video if like the outcome's gonna be like relatively similar, right? Thirdly, we also like get like a long form of content, and Ethan kind of talked to you like this is not an exclusive that they have on their side of the house. People will be redirected to long content, and it still exists even if they're not redirected by the TikTok, so we still get that benefit. Okay. So we take down like one of their main claims in terms of this clash, and so we're like way ahead. But still, like another claim they made was that like this small claim about like accountability, and like no one's going to be accountable for like the videos they made, whereas reports they'll be accountable because like they have their names on there. We tell you like TikTok and like Instagram reels and stuff like that, you're still accountable because you're posting on your like own social media, so you're going to be accountable for it because your name's literally underneath it, right? And we also tell you secondly that like even if the person themselves like doesn't like claim that accountability, people will like come like backlash. People don't generally just sit there when something like negative is happening, especially for like a minority group, and therefore we think that it's like we actually do see that accountability either way. In terms of like what we also brought you on this, we told you that like we actually get better change because we when you see like people coming out, this raises awareness in general, and like having more people is just like having more of a culture of like being able to talk about it and stuff like that is actually just generally better than not having that culture. But we didn't really get much engagement on this out in general, and we tell you this is quite exclusive to like social media because that's like what the youth engages with. That is what the trend is these days, and like social media is like based on like popularity and like viewers, so it's something that they can't claim by just doing like reports because it's unlikely that like anyone's going to go home and like read a 1,000-word like report on like why something's bad when they can go to TikTok and watch a 30-second video on that. Thank you.
Great, I thank Speaker Negating for that speech. I welcome up third affirmative.
I'm on 5% also. It'll last.
Are you happy with drink?
Could I not be a string?
Yep. Great, I thank third affirmative for that speech. I welcome up the negating.
I think where side neg completely misses the mark side F completely misses the mark in this debate is that they've actually completely failed to provide any valid mechanism in how they actually address mental health and how they actually get greater awareness to mental health. Because their counterfactual is so flimsy that it's been thoroughly responded to right down our line. 3 things I'm going to do in this debate. Firstly, I'm going to deal with their counterfactual and show how they don't actually have a mechanism to institute awareness and institute change. Then I'm going to engage them at their best on the last 2 points of clash. Is there going to be like fakeness and stuff in this mental health awareness on TikTok? And what are like the exclusive awareness benefits and effect on mental health we see as a result of that? Okay, onto their counterfactual. Their counterfactual is that they will have like the capital to like institute longer form videos or like longer form articles at the point in time people no longer engage in TikTok. I'd say this is completely unlikely since the actual people that make TikTok are very unlikely to engage in like longer form videos because they're like outside of their area of expertise. Secondly here, I think generally the people who engage in watching TikTok because that's their preferred form of social media, they won't all of a sudden navigate over to YouTube because there isn't like a niche area of interest in mental health. It's like an exclusive like trend on TikTok. That's where we see most of the dialogue around TikTok happening. Note here, they cannot claim this exclusively since they haven't proven why there is this opportunity cost. We see the creators creating this content as very different people. We see this long form videos on our side of the house as well. We also claim this benefit. Note here, I think we can flip and see we actually see more attention on these issues on our side of the house. Why is this? I think this is the weak case for 2 reasons. First of all, when you're like watching videos, watching like these TikToks, it'll often have like links in it. It can be someone talking about their battle with depression, then they'll link to like a study or an article or a YouTube video that takes like an academic approach to it. We see more awareness in the form of links. Secondly, I think it just like will foster a new interest. Like if you like watch it on TikTok, you're more likely to be interested, more likely to search up longer form videos. So I think note here, at their very best here, even if we see this shift happen, I think we generally see a great sacrifice in terms of awareness at their best case, since less people read like WordPress articles or blogs than watch TikTok. Note here, from now on I'm going to be engaging at their best and prove why even if they do have this mechanism, which we've explained is quite low impact at its best, we still win. I'll take the POI now.
How did you personally discover ADHD? Through TikTok or just people talking about it? Just it being a trend that these things get talked about?
Well, TikTok wasn't around when I was younger, so yeah. But I think from now on, the way that like a lot of people deal with it is like, especially at a younger age, you're more likely to find this out through like TikTok. You're more likely to engage with it through TikTok, since that is where like people you really look up to are talking about it. Okay, now onto their like principal harm they've tried to claim. I think the first 3 principal harms that they try to claim can be rebutted quite easily. What are these harms? They say that there'll be fake content. Secondly, they say it will undermine issues. And thirdly, they say that it's like monetization of mental health. 6 reasons why we're unlikely to see this occur. Number 1, I think cancel culture will like hit back at those who fake mental health struggles or create terrible videos, because like there will be large public awareness. The public are not fools. When someone creates like a really ludicrous video like trivializing mental health or something like that, we're likely to see cancel culture engaged in it. Secondly, I think we're on like by and large we see like a sense of common decency with people who actually like create TikTok videos. They aren't really going to be like trivializing such a like serious thing. Thirdly here, I think it's like fairly hard to fake personal experience with a mental health video, especially when you're in the context of being a content creator. Insofar as your life is constantly in the spotlight, you can't really fake it over a long period of time. We're unlikely to see them fakely here. Fourthly, I think TikTok is a fairly moderated platform insofar as that those who engage in these bad things will be banned. This means that TikTokers are unlikely to engage in this fakeness since they want to keep their jobs. They don't want to be banned off TikTok if they're exposed. Fifthly here, I think we're going to see backlash from other creators if they're proven a fraud. And then number 6 here, I think you're going to lose sponsors if you're like exposed as a fraud since you've like been outed as a bad person. Note here, they're more likely to care about the sponsors than creating any additional views like they've tried to claim. Since like the sponsorship money they get is greater than the ad money you see on TikTok, you're more likely to care about your reputation, which leads to sponsors, than getting views. So on the basis of this, I think most of their stuff around their principal harm falls out of the debate since it's like been quite clearly responded to. I just gave you 6 reasons why we're unlikely to see fakeness. That is like the basic crux for most of their stuff on their principal harm. Right. Now just a bit more on monetizing mental health. I think what we increasingly see is we see the like removal of ads on the like videos that are talking about like mental health and stuff like that, since people like care about their reputation, as I said before. Right. So at the end of this, what have we done? I think in our worst case here, we've shown that we're unlikely to see greatly fake videos. What we're more likely to see is like maybe generalized videos around mental health. Note here, this is actually still a huge positive on our side of the house. Insofar as that we're raising awareness, we're normalizing it more. There's more people aware of like how many people have mental health issues and stuff like that. That's still a really positive thing, and that is our worst case. At our best case, we see these really authentic videos. It's a really good thing. So we're ahead on awareness. Note, awareness leads to like more government attention. More government attention leads to actually solving the root causes for this issues. We provide the mechanisms that solve the issue of mental health in this country. They have failed to actually show how they solved it, other than this like really flimsy counterfactual. They have no leg to stand on in this debate. Now I'm going to extend the margin by showing these really good societal benefits specific to the TikTok platform. Note here, I think we came out with Ethan at several convincing reasons. We've actually saw very little engagement with like these mechanisms for the exclusive benefit of TikTok up until the very end of their third speech. What are they? I think firstly, we see it generally targeted at young people. This gives them additional awareness. Secondly, it's a high reach platform. That means we can like reach more people and stuff like that. Thirdly, I think it's really powerful when someone who's like your idol, you're like your TikTok idol or whatever, opens up about your issues. That can also like subverts expectations about who actually deals with mental health. If someone like really famous is, that can like really normalize it, since it's not someone who like you would expect deals with these mental health issues. Fourthly, I think due to like the video format is a fairly authentic social media platform. And then fifthly, this is a bit of an extension here, but I think we can gain like really good support for creators by instituting change, since like if a creator opens up about it, they have like an army of TikTok fans that will also support them in instituting positive governmental change. So on the basis of this, we have really good societal benefits. We've met those out right down our line. We saw quite little engagement, other than the fact that like they said that algorithms like push fake videos. Two responses here. Firstly, I think generally fake videos will be like quite heavily disliked, quite heavily like not engaged with. This pushes them to the bottom of the algorithm. They're unlikely to appear in the first place. And then I also don't think there's a specific rabbit hole for like fake mental health videos in the TikTok algorithm. It's like more likely what's going to happen is it's going to lead you into another video about mental health that will likely correct the incorrect information you've seen. Now on how mental health issues are made worse. The first claim here is that they say that there will be like an increase in like self-diagnosing / algorithm / like people like going to doctors and not really being true. Note here, I think this is conceding that we get more like neurodiverse or like people with mental health struggles engaging with diagnosis. This is a really huge benefit, because even if not all of them have it, it still means that like addressing issues and stuff like that, that's a really positive thing. Second of all, people on the path of checking out diagnosis will likely like look at a website or something before getting an appointment. And then on this like waste resource stuff, I think like generally if there's like more people going to like a mental health clinic or something like that, the government will actually increase funding. So even if not everyone is getting like diagnosed, we see more government funding since more people are going there. That's another really good issue. So at the end of today's debate, what Canterbury has done is we've actually shown how we address the topic, we've shown how we get change. They haven't done that at all, that's why we've won.
Great. I think the negating for that speech, as per tradition in the reverse of speaking order, I invite negating reply.
I'd like to open this, leaders, by pointing out one of the biggest benefits we brought for you in this debate that has been thoroughly unengaged with all the way down the line. The benefits to mental health creators. I think it's important to note here that this is a really, really big stakeholder of people who have these public brands, that have these deep-seated issues, and are no longer stuck in the cycle of pretending to be happy-go-lucky, that they can talk about their real issues, that they have this catharsis by showing their real self to their followers, and this is brings deep mental health benefits to them. This stakeholder, their freedom of expression, is something we really want to protect. They have not provided enough reasons to regret this freedom of expression. This is part of the reason why Canterbury is in the lead. Alright, I'm going to talk about a few things here. Number one, what do these videos actually look like on our side of the house? Because there's been a lot of clashing on this. Realistically, I think, if I'm being charitable, it's probably going to be a mix between both of our characterizations. There's probably going to be some manipulative videos, and I think there's going to be some like actual people going through these struggles speaking about their mental health issues. Why is it then that our characterization is going to be a greater proportion of the population than theirs? One, that there are a lot of people with mental struggles, right? Things like depression, anxiety, ADHD, all of these are really, really common. A lot of people who deal with these things, a lot of creators. Number two, people want to express themselves. These people, when going through this, because of this catharsis of being able to open up about something that society generally makes you like keep quiet about, means that a lot of people want to express themselves, they want to make these videos. Three, that their bad videos are like less likely to exist because the most viral versions of them get duetted by like people going through these mental health issues and like doctors and psychiatrists who then like put down these videos and punish them and then create a discussion and open up like dialogue that we think is really positive, and also because of the mechanism of cancel culture, that there are a lot of people on the internet right now looking to punish bad behavior. When this bad behavior gets rooted out, then there's going to be like really, really big harms, loss of sponsors, loss of jobs. This is going to disincentivize a lot of this bad behavior. And finally, we're giving you 3 more reasons. For that people aren't actually like evil, they're not Machiavellian monsters, they're not going to want to be super manipulative and hurt people. This is a small percentage of the population. 5, that there's not actually that huge of a benefit to making these videos. It's like TikTok ad revenue isn't that crazy and you're going to drop sponsors if you're found out, meaning that sponsors aren't going to be an incentive. And 6, that honesty, like when we get a lot more of these videos actually get a lot of engagement because honesty gets engagement. People like sincerity, people like that. Furthermore, I think it's interesting to note that on that cancel culture pushback where people disguise content to make it general and like more generally applicable and true, that kind of like really mitigates pretty much any and all of that harms that they're trying to demonstrate about like these videos being really misinformative, because when they are really misinformative, they get called out and cancelled. All right then, let's get into the clashes. How do we impact neurodiverse people on our side of the house? Well, when people come across people speaking about their mental health benefits, their mental health issues, we get 4 benefits. Number 1, it makes them feel less alone. Number 2, it provides coping mechanisms. Number 3, it encourages people to seek diagnoses and to get like these systems of help that we have in our society. And number 4, it normalizes speaking about these issues and them having that catharsis themselves. Furthermore, we brought you to societal benefits and the fact that neurotypical people, when they see like influencers they really like releasing these videos, have their expectations subverted on what these mental health issues look like, and then now carry over like positive associations and empathy towards people with these mental health disability, like disadvantages in real life. All right, these are really, really big benefits. They haven't been properly like rebutted. These are like winning the debate. Okay, but what are the harms to neurodiverse people that they've brought forward? One, that there's less long form videos, that there's like limited content. I think people on TikTok probably aren't gonna like being on TikTok means you're on TikTok and you just come across mental health stuff in your feed. I think it doesn't translate to not watching long form videos. 2, actually, if TikTok is very often used as like a direction to long form videos, and also fake diagnoses. Luke's given pretty good response to that. Because of all this, I think we're pretty clearly here. Thank you.
I thank Negating reply for that speech. I welcome up Affirmative reply to close the debate.
We told you right at my first speech that we were willing to concede some level of awareness for more detailed and informed media. Insofar as they claim that they're going to hold people accountable, but they never provide any metrics of how they're always going to hold the correct amount of people accountable without hurting all the genuine creators on their side. We also talk about how they get awareness but never go beyond the baseline of how depression might just equal sad. That's how we win this debate. Also, just to clarify, they kind of dropped their content creator analysis and then just randomly brought it back and clarified. 2 points then. Firstly, on what the mental health movement look on TikTok looks like, and then secondly, why this leads to better or worse societal change. And note that here we win on both metrics. Firstly then, what have we told you in the very beginning? We've told you 3 things. Firstly, that the creators are likely to be driven by views. Secondly, that it's likely to be very inadequate levels of research because that's just 60 seconds, right? But also thirdly, they're likely to pander towards algorithm. What they've then told us then is that people are likely to share their genuine experiences and share coping mechanisms, right? But note here that it's probably very unlikely that the amount of people who want to capitalize on their algorithm largely outweighs the like the genuine creators to even go there. But even then, right, the next contention on this was saying that they have accountability measures because TikTok bans you and there's cancel culture, right? Why have we framed to you that there's no accountability measures? We've told you a couple of things. Firstly, it's a very sensitive issue, so it's hard to call out, right? In the sense that they can just say you can call it out, but also say themselves that it's very personal. I don't see how it's very easy to call out that without genuinely hurting some like creators who might meet it. But also secondly, we see that people are likely to be sympathetic, right? I've already told you that people experience it differently, but when you give the most baseline level of mental health problems, that's when you are the worst off. But also thirdly, note here that it's really hard to cancel everyone, right? You can show maybe at that best case scenario, you're able to cancel some scale of bad creators, but you're never actually to reach the crux of it or the massive amounts of people benefiting the algorithm. And note here then, they're also able to call out the genuine creators that they want. They did told us then, right? That on their side, they are trying to co-opt our benefits by saying they also reach like redirected to long videos. We've told you three things. Firstly, likely people get addicted to scroll. Secondly, people passively watch. Also, thirdly, know that people only go when they're super passionate, right? And they themselves concede on their side that many people probably aren't interested in these longer forms videos to begin with, so it's unlikely how they're able to co-opt on our benefits. The counterfactual is, and we've provided to you, is three things. Firstly, when you actually have long hours and long days to work on it, they're just naturally likely to be more detailed. Secondly, there's just more content just on length, right? You're likely to get more content in just because it's likely to be longer. But also thirdly, know that it's more able to be criticized when it's longer form, when it's more likely to have more credibility because it's less on scale. Note here that what this actually means is that they're no longer generic, uninformed information that we're putting out, and we're actually getting real people who really struggle with this to actually look onto videos that are actually able to help them and benefit them the most. Note that the reasons why this counterfactual is existent is never actually addressed adequately, right? I've already told you not only that like these individuals still need outlets to share their feelings, but also simply that the trend of mental health awareness originated on YouTube before shifting over to shorter media. Because of this, we have won in the fact that we're able to prove that there's more harmful actors promoting these views than genuine actors on this. Secondly, then let's just talk about whether this leads to better or worse societal change, and I'll tie a principle into this as well, right? Firstly, why are you likely to self-diagnose? We've told you three things. Firstly, because there's echo chambers in the algorithm, right? In the sense that you constantly see yourselves, so even if you watch one video, you constantly scroll and see more. But not least secondly, it's really easy to identify with the basic harms that you are given. When you are told that depression equals sad, or that you have a low attention span, so you have ADHD, it's really easy to fit onto that, even though you might not specifically have it, and thirdly then, you might just have a placebo effect where you think you have it, and thus that hindrance your daily life. Know that we also just win on the principle, right? Because this is a principle we will always get, and was never addressed, and only like kind of mitigated. In the sense that we, at the very minimum, are able to protect these people who suffer from mental health from these basic harms, in fact that people are monetizing off them, and secondly, actually representing them really badly and undermining their issues. This is a whole principle that we should win on like this debate alone. But even then, right, know how it manifests in the social interactions you win. This looks like pressuring them and undermining them, but also just pushing a singular solution when there could be multiple. This goes into direct analysis of them telling us that people are lucky to speak up, but there's no point in speaking up when you're being pressured by the societal forces around you to speak up. At the end of this then, not only do we get better, not only are we able to prove to you that the current system fails in terms of representing them, secondly we win on principle, secondly we win on the fact that we're able to get more informed decisions, and that's why we win. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to continue the debate. I implore you guys to go across the floor and shake hands and the live stream.
You guys are so calm.
You're really